The crowd at Naval Air Station Pensacola was buzzing with excitement. The sun was bright, the sky was clear, and the iconic blue and gold F-18 Hornets of the U.S. Navy Blue Angels team sat gleaming on the runway. Families waved American flags. Kids wore tiny pilot helmets. Veterans stood proudly with arms crossed, ready for a show they knew by heart, but still felt in their bones every time. Then the announcer's voice thundered over the speakers, "Ladies and gentlemen, prepare for takeoff. You are about to witness precision, discipline, and the power of the United States Navy." The crowd erupted. The jets roared into the sky in perfect formation, slicing through the blue horizon with synchronized grace. Lieutenant Commander Ethan "Falcon" Hayes, flying jet number 3, breathed steadily through his mask. He wasn't new to this. 8 years in the cockpit. Hundreds of shows. But every time, his pulse still kicked harder when the engines roared. The diamond formation tightened, each jet flying only inches apart. The crowd gasped as they threaded through impossible loops and knife-edge passes. Then came the opposing knife-edge pass. 2 jets would approach each other at high speed, appearing to barely miss in midair. Ethan had practiced this maneuver thousands of times with Lieutenant Mark "Raptor" Collins in jet number 4. Falcon, ready. Raptor, locked in. They dove in from opposite ends of the sky. The speed built. 790 miles per hour. Angle perfect. Breathing tight. The pass was supposed to be razor close, but safe. Then something went wrong. A shimmer of unexpected turbulence jolted Ethan's jet. In a split second, his wing clipped Raptor's tail. The sky exploded in a flash of sparks. The crowd screamed. One jet spiraled out of control, flames trailing behind. The other pitched violently, alarms blaring in Ethan's cockpit. "Mayday! Mayday!" he shouted. And in that moment, thousands of hearts on the ground stopped together. Ethan's jet shuddered violently, warning lights flashing red across his HUD. His breathing quickened as he fought to regain control. The F-18 pitched downward, the G-force pressing him into the seat like a crushing fist. His training kicked in faster than fear. "Falcon to control, I've lost aileron response, attempting stabilization." On the ground, the announcer fell silent. Families clutched each other. Veterans froze, eyes wide. What was supposed to be a moment of awe was now turning into a nightmare unfolding above them. Meanwhile, Mark "Raptor" Collins's jet was in worse shape. The tail strike sent his aircraft into a spinning fireball. His cockpit alarms screamed in a shrill chorus of doom. "Eject! Eject! Eject!" Mark shouted. A second later, his seat blasted from the jet, flames reflecting off his visor as his parachute deployed. The burning aircraft plummeted toward the far end of the airfield, crashing into an empty field with an explosive roar. A massive fireball bloomed. The crowd gasped in horror. Some people unknowingly recorded with shaky hands, others covered their children's eyes. Veterans stood rigid, jaws clenched. Back in the sky, Ethan's hands were slick with sweat as he fought to keep the crippled jet steady. The wing damage made the plane lurch uncontrollably. His voice trembled but stayed steady enough for the comms. "Control, this is Falcon. I can't guarantee a landing. Preparing for emergency procedure." "Falcon, runway is clear. You are go for emergency attempt," the tower replied. He could feel his heartbeat thundering inside his helmet. He trained for this, but training simulations didn't include the smell of smoke leaking into the cockpit or the thought of thousands watching, praying he wouldn't die in front of them. At a low altitude, the jet dipped dangerously. Ethan yanked the control stick, fighting gravity. The ground rushed toward him like a hammer. Come on," he whispered. The Blue Angels were known for perfection. But in that moment, Ethan knew he wasn't performing. He was surviving. And the next few seconds would decide if he lived, or became a tragic headline. Ethan's jet was barely holding together. Smoke streaked along the left wing, controls sluggish like they were moving through wet cement. His vision blurred for a second under the stress, but he blinked hard, refocusing. The runway loomed ahead. "Falcon, you're coming in hot," the control tower warned. Ethan gritted his teeth. "I know." He lowered the landing gear. A grinding noise shook the jet, one wheel jammed halfway. Not good. There was no time to troubleshoot. He would either land this with one functioning wheel, or he'd skid into a fiery disaster in front of everyone. Back on the ground, medics sprinted toward Mark's landing zone. Raptor hit the ground hard, rolling across the dirt as his parachute dragged. He groaned but stayed conscious, pain shooting through his ribs. Flames burned behind him where his jet had crashed, black smoke curling into the sky. Pilot down but alive, a medic shouted as they rushed in. The crowd exhaled shakily, but all eyes shot back to the sky. One jet was gone. But one was still fighting. Ethan aligned with the runway, hands steadying the trembling control stick. Training echoed in his mind, slow is smooth. Smooth is fast. Trust your instincts. He touched down. The good landing gear slammed against the tarmac. Sparks exploded as the damaged wheel collapsed. The jet screeched, metal grinding like a banshee's cry. Ethan held on, fighting the skid as the aircraft spun sideways, shredding runway asphalt. Come on, stay with me. The jet finally skidded to a violent stop near the emergency vehicles. Silence followed for one nerve-shattering moment. Then Ethan exhaled, trembling. He'd made it. The canopy popped open as fire crews rushed in, hoses ready. Ethan climbed out slowly, legs shaking. When his boots hit the ground, he dropped to one knee, overwhelmed by the adrenaline crash. A paramedic ran up. "Lieutenant, can you walk?" He nodded weakly, trying to steady his breathing. His ears were still ringing with alarms that no longer sounded. In the distance, Mark was being loaded onto a stretcher, giving a weak thumbs up to the crowd. The disaster was over. But the story of what happened next would shock the nation. Within hours, news of the Blue Angels mid-air collision swept across every major network in America. The footage, recorded by a dozen spectators, spread online like wildfire. Headlines screamed across screens, "Blue Angels crash mid-air during Airshow, pilots survive." At Naval Air Station Pensacola, the investigation began immediately. Both Ethan Falcon Hayes and Mark Raptor Collins were kept under observation at the base hospital. Minor burns, bruised ribs, and a 1,000-yard stare, that was all. By miracle or sheer skill, they had survived what should have been fatal. The next morning, Ethan woke to the sound of jets outside, the sound that had always been home. A young nurse stood at his bedside. "You're lucky, sir. Everyone's calling you heroes." He managed a faint smile. "Heroes don't crash," he said quietly. But later that day, Commander Briggs, their team leader, visited the hospital. He placed a small navy pin on Ethan's blanket. "You didn't fail," he said. "You saved a crowd of 20,000 by steering that wreck away from the stands. That's not failure, son. That's courage." Across the base, Mark was visited by local children carrying small American flags. One boy asked, "Mister, will the Blue Angels fly again?" Mark looked at Ethan, who'd been wheeled into the same room, and smiled through the bruises. "Yeah, kid. We'll fly again. That's what we do." Weeks later, the Blue Angels returned to the skies, this time with a tribute formation. The missing number 3 jet left an open space in the pattern, a silent salute to the day courage met disaster and refused to break. As the jets roared overhead, Ethan stood on the tarmac watching. The noise rattled his chest, but this time, it wasn't fear, it was pride. He thought about how close they'd come to tragedy, and how even in chaos, training, instinct, and heart had pulled them back. When the crowd cheered, Ethan whispered to himself, "Blue Angels never fall, they rise."